may be needed. Now, joining us now is Scott Schober, CEO of Berkeley Varitronics Systems and a tech and cyber expert, and Vino Varghese, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let's start with the obvious question. Is oversight and regulation needed here?
Well, to some degree, it probably would help. But we know what happens when there's too much government oversight. We have problems. I just think back to the telco days back in the early 80s, what happened with the baby bells, the break-off of the bell system. It got chopped up, decimated, and it caused a lot of problems. But a lot of growth and things came out of that. But it's going to take time, and it's going to be difficult to effectively do that with these large tech companies. Google, for example, they own 200 different companies individually. It'd be a mess. So a lot of difficulty to regulate that.
Vino, what do you think?
I think some regulations come. The question is whether they can actually regulate, because the First Amendment, becomes a First Amendment issue, and whether in trying to protect national security, whether you're suppressing the right to free speech. And this is the debate. This is the issue that Congress is going to be faced with here.
All right, so this is a reckoning of sorts for social media companies, and if regulation is not the answer, then what is the answer?
Well, I think there will be some form of regulation. I think these companies actually welcome Facebook and Twitter suggested that they agreed with some potential legislation. I think it's going to become basically around capitalism. I mean, there's a lot of bad press here when it turned out that Facebook learned that they were sharing intelligence with a company called Huawei that has close ties to the military, and Facebook's taken some serious hits with the fact that it knew that the Russians were meddling in the 2016 election. So there's a lot of problems, and this has to be self-correction. It's going to reflect in their stock values.
Scott?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more behind it also, because another conversation that comes to surface is providing a backdoor to encryption. And that keeps coming up again and again. And tech companies push back. We know Apple's done that in the past. Certainly Google, Facebook, Twitter, they all get very nervous when they start to make a second set of rules and say, okay, the government can see this, and what steps over the privacy lines. Very dangerous, and it also exposes them. It opens up their IP. That's dangerous for a big giant tech company. That's their secret sauce. They don't want to do that.
Congressman Greg Walden said this to Jack Dorsey. He said it takes years to build trust, but only 280 characters to lose it. So how is it then voters at this point can actually feel confident that they're not being spoon-fed fake news, for lack of a better term?
Well, they certainly are. I mean, just look at the different platforms. You look at Facebook. Facebook's got 2.2 billion users. It's estimated that 83 million of those users are fake accounts. They're trying hard, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, to get rid of all these fake accounts, and that's important so they can keep the ad dollars coming in and keep their loyalty customer base going. But it's a fine line they really have to walk. And you got to also look at Twitter. Twitter's much smaller. They got about 330 million users. 79% of those users are actually out of the United States. So it's a very different footprint they have than some of the giants like Facebook and Google, certainly.
Scott called it a fine line. How do you walk that line?
Well, I think the more that Facebook does, to become transparent, the better people will feel. I mean, Facebook went on a huge marketing campaign well, right before Mark Zuckerberg testified a few months ago.
But just because they embark on a marketing campaign doesn't mean that they're actually implementing changes that are going to make a difference on the platform.
Well, Facebook says it's working with the FBI in trying to weed out some of these accounts, and shared some of its data with Twitter. Twitter was actually slow in responding to some of these fake accounts. So there's some effort here. But the larger question, at these hearings is, where was Google, right? Google's all over the internet, but nowhere in this hearing. And everyone was complaining about that. Some of the senators
How do you think that looks for Google not being present?
Oh, I think it looks terrible. They should have been there. Larry Page should have been there. I don't know why he wasn't. Maybe it's some of the fallout from some of the controversy with Trump, which is likely the case there, and to try
but
to
you would think that would actually make them want to come more to try and set the record straight. I mean, President Trump ripped into Google on Twitter. It was a typical Twitter tirade where he actually had said that they're treading on very, very troubled territory, and they have to be careful, talking about how they're even allegedly skewing search results.
Sure. I think Google, they were ghosting the Senate today, right? So I think that they have, one of the senators brought out the fact that they have issues in Gmail, issues in YouTube, and so Google, it's not going to be good for them in terms of the PR. But you know, Google is the largest search engine. YouTube is the second largest search engine. Facebook is trying to catch up to them. So, you know, it remains to be seen and where their stocks are going after this.
What ultimately is going to effectuate change here? Is it going to be stocks plummeting and users saying, you know what, we're not confident that we're getting accurate information here? Ad dollars go down, stock prices go down, and it's all a spiral effect?
I think certainly that's capable. I think that the users, the consumer base is really going to drive this way or that way, and ultimately the consumers are going to win, whether ad dollars are spent here or not, and whether tech companies cave or not. I don't think they should necessarily cave to the government. That could be a big mistake. They have to hold the line to some degree to make sure it's safe.
What do you think?
I think the bottom line is, look, it's greed versus good here, right? Yeah. There's a little bit, there's so much, only so much that Facebook and Google and YouTube are going to do. Congress is going to step in, but then it becomes a legal battle over how much they can actually step in.
All right, Scott, Vinu, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And still.